Chapter 4.
And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman has conceived seed and born a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation for her menstruation, she shall be unclean. And in the 8th day, the boy shall be circumcised. And she shall then continue in the time of her purifying, which shall be 33 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary, until the days of her purifying are fulfilled. But if she bear a female child, she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the time of her purifying 66 days. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest who shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the flow of her blood. This is the law for her that has borne a male or a female. And if she is not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. And the Lord spoke unto Moses and Aaron, saying, When a man shall have in the skin of his flesh arising a scab or bright spot, and it is in the skin of his flesh like the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought unto Aaron, the priest, or unto one of his sons, the priests. And the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh, and when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in sight is deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a plague of leprosy, and the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. If the bright spot is white in the skin of his flesh, and in sight is not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof is not turned white, then the priest shall isolate him that has the plague 7 days. And the priest shall look on him the 7th day, and behold, if the plague in his sight is at a stay, and the plague spread not in the skin, then the priest shall isolate him 7 days more. And the priest shall look on him again the 7th day, and behold, if the plague is somewhat dark, and the plague spread not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is but a scab, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab spread much abroad in the skin after he has been seen of the priest for his cleansing, he shall be seen of the priest again. And if the priest sees that, behold, the scab spreads in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprosy. When the plague of leprosy is in a man, then he shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall see him. And behold, if the rising is white in the skin, and it has turned the hair white, and there is quick raw flesh in the rising, it is an old leprosy in the skin of his flesh, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall not isolate him, for he is unclean. And if a leprosy break out abroad in the skin, and the leprosy cover all the skin of him that has the plague, from his head even to his foot, wherever the priest looks, then the priest shall consider. And behold, if the leprosy has covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce him clean that has the plague. It is all turned white. He is clean. But when raw flesh appears in him, he shall be unclean. And the priest shall see the raw flesh and pronounce him to be unclean, for the raw flesh is unclean. It is a leprosy. Or if the raw flesh turn again and is changed unto white, he shall come unto the priest, and the priest shall see him. And behold, if the plague is turned into white, then the priest shall pronounce him clean that has the plague. He is clean. The flesh also in which was a boil, even in the skin thereof, and is healed, and in the place of the boil there is a white rising, or a bright spot, white and somewhat reddish, and it is shown to the priest, and if, when the priest sees it, behold, it is in sight lower than the skin, and the hair thereof is turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of leprosy broken out of the boil. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there are no white hairs therein, and if it is not lower than the skin, but is somewhat dark, then the priest shall isolate him 7 days. And if it spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague. But if the bright spot stay in his place and spread not, it is a burning boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if there is any flesh in the skin whereof there is a hot burning, and the quick flesh that burns has a white bright spot, somewhat reddish or white, then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the hair in the bright spot is turned white, and it is in sight deeper than the skin, it is a leprosy broken out of the burning, wherefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of leprosy. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there is no white hair in the bright spot, and it is no lower than the other skin, but is somewhat dark, then the priest shall isolate him 7 days. And the priest shall look upon him the 7th day, and if it is spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of leprosy. And if the bright spot stay in his place and spread not in the skin, but it is somewhat dark, it is a rising of the burning, and the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is an inflammation of the burning. If a man or woman has a plague upon the head or the beard, then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it is in sight deeper than the skin, and there is in it a yellow, thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry skull, even a leprosy upon the head or beard. And if the priest look on the plague of the skull, and behold, it is not in sight deeper than the skin, and that there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall isolate him that has the plague of the skull 7 days. And in the 7th day, the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, if the skull spread not, and there is in it no yellow hair, and the skull is not in sight deeper than the skin, he shall be shaved, but the skull shall he not shave. And the priest shall isolate him that has the skull 7 days more. And in the 7th day, the priest shall look on the skull, and behold, if the skull is not spread in the skin, nor is in sight deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes, and be clean. But if the skull spread much in the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall look on him, and behold, if the skull is spread in the skin, the priest shall not seek for yellow hair. He is unclean. But if the skull is in his sight at a stay, and that there is black hair grown up therein, the skull is healed. He is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. If a man also or a woman has in the skin of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the bright spots in the skin of their flesh are darkish white, it is a freckled spot that grows in the skin. He is clean. And the man whose hair is fallen off his head is bald, yet is he clean. And he that has his hair fallen off from the part of his head toward his face has a bald forehead, yet is he clean. And if there is in the bald head or bald forehead a reddish-white sore, it is a leprosy sprung up in his bald head or his bald forehead. Then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the rising of the sore is reddish-white in his bald head or in his bald forehead, as the leprosy appears in the skin of the flesh, he is a leprous man. He is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him utterly unclean. His plague is in his head. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bared, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, Unclean, unclean. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone. Outside the camp shall his habitation be. The garment also that the plague of leprosy is in, whether it be a woolen garment or a linen garment, whether it be in the warp or woof, of linen or of wool, whether in a skin or in anything made of skin, and if the plague is greenish or reddish in the garment or in the skin, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, it is a plague of leprosy, and shall be shown unto the priest. And the priest shall look upon the plague and isolate it that has the plague 7 days. And he shall look on the plague on the 7th day. If the plague is spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in a skin, or in any work that is made of skin, the plague is a malignant leprosy. It is unclean. He shall therefore burn that garment, whether warp or woof, in woolen or in linen, or anything of skin wherein the plague is, for it is a malignant leprosy. It shall be burned in the fire. And if the priest shall look, and behold, the plague is not spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, then the priest shall command that they wash the thing wherein the plague is, and he shall isolate it 7 days more. And the priest shall look on the plague after it is washed, and behold, if the plague has not changed his color, and the plague is not spread, it is unclean. You shall burn it in the fire. It is decayed inward, whether it is bare within or without. And if the priest look, and behold, the plague is somewhat dark after the washing of it, then he shall rend it out of the garment, or out of the skin, or out of the warp, or out of the woof. And if it appear still in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, it is a spreading plague. You shall burn that wherein the plague is with fire. And the garment, either warp or woof, or whatever thing of skin it is, which you shall wash, if the plague has departed from them, then it shall be washed the second time, and shall be clean. This is the law of the plague of leprosy in a garment of wool or linen, either in the warp or woof, or anything of skins, to pronounce it clean or to pronounce it unclean. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy is healed in the leper, then shall the priest command to take, for him that is to be cleansed, 2 birds, alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them in the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water, and he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water that he may be clean. And after that, he shall come into the camp, and shall remain abroad, out of his tent, 7 days. But it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shall shave off. And he shall wash his clothes, also he shall wash his flesh in water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day, he shall take 2 he-lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3/10 parts of fine flour for a grain offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest that makes him clean shall present the man that is to be made clean and those things before the Lord, at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall take 1 he-lamb and offer him for a trespass offering, and the log of oil, and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he shall kill the sin offering and the burnt offering, in the holy place. For as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the trespass offering. It is most holy. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle of the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. And of the rest of the oil that is in his hand shall the priest put upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the blood of the trespass offering. And the remnant of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall pour upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering and make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed from his uncleanness, and afterward he shall kill the burnt offering. And the priest shall offer the burnt offering and the grain offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean. And if he is poor and cannot get so much, Then he shall take 1 lamb for a trespass offering, to be waved to make an atonement for him, and 1/10 part of fine flour mingled with oil for a grain offering, and a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get, and the one shall be a sin offering and the other a burnt offering. And he shall bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before the Lord. And the priest shall put of the oil that is in his hand upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the place of the blood of the trespass offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, to make an atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer the one of the turtle doves or of the young pigeons, such as he can get, even such as he is able to get, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, with the grain offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom is the plague of leprosy, whose hand is not able to get that which pertains to his cleansing. And the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When you have come into the land of Canaan which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession, and he that owns the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, It seems to me there is something like a plague in the house, then the priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest go into it to see the plague, that all that is in the house be not made unclean. And afterward the priest shall go in to see the house. And he shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague is in the walls of the house, with hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall, then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house and quarantine the house 7 days. And the priest shall come again the 7th day, and shall look, and behold, if the plague is spread in the walls of the house, then the priest shall command that they take away the stones in which the plague is, and they shall cast them into an unclean place outside the city. And he shall cause the house to be scraped within, round about, and they shall pour out the dust that they scrape off outside the city into an unclean place. And they shall take other stones, and put them in the place of those stones, and he shall take other mortar, and shall plaster the house. And if the plague come again and break out in the house, after he has taken away the stones, and after he has scraped the house, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come and look, and behold, if the plague is spread in the house, it is a malignant leprosy in the house. It is unclean. And he shall break down the house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, he that goes into the house all the while that it is quarantined shall be unclean until sunset. And he that lies in the house shall wash his clothes, and he that eats in the house shall wash his clothes. And if the priest shall come in and look upon it, and behold, the plague has not spread in the house after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. And he shall take, to cleanse the house, 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And he shall kill one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with the scarlet. But he shall let go the living bird out of the city into the open fields, and make an atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for all manner of plague of leprosy, and skull, and for the leprosy of a garment, and of a house, and for a rising, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the law of leprosy.